I'm going to assume that no one on here has more listing opportunities than they know what to do with. And I think that's probably a safe assumption. And I hope if I'm wrong for any of you, way to go. um, so given that assumption, then the question is, what can we do to make sure that we're maximizing our opportunities? How do we get more listing opportunities? We got to find and talk to more people. It's that simple. I'm here in San Diego this week, and I'm sitting in the office of my real estate team. And I just finished meeting with the team. And I gave them news that they probably didn't want to hear. And the news I gave them was that the market's getting tougher, which means the hill that we're climbing is getting steeper. And you either put in more time, more energy, and go faster and work with more urgency, or you're going to start going backwards, because that's what happens when the hill gets steeper. The stronger the headwinds, the harder you have to charge into them. And that's not what people generally want to hear, but that's the truth. So when we focus into listings, it's the same thing. We have to be talking to more people now than ever before, because fewer people are selling now than ever before, right? We went from 6.4 million people selling homes last year to, we could end up at under 4 million this year, around 4 million. That's a big decline in the number of people selling homes. So that means that we have to be talking to considerably more people. Who are we talking to? Two groups of people we know have already made the decision to sell: expired listings, for sale by owners. Where else do we find sellers? We often find sellers in neighborhoods where someone just listed a home or just sold a home. And so we're spending time calling around, mailing, sending note cards to the people around the listings and sales that we see. If they aren't our listings and sales, we're borrowing someone else's listings and sales and calling the neighbors around those, door knocking, whatever means necessary to be able to contact those people and see who else is thinking about making a move now that this neighbor's made a move, or who else is about to put their home on the market that hasn't pulled the trigger yet. Where else can we find people that are thinking about selling? Looking at people that have owned their home for a while, that are over the age of 75. They're saying, okay, well, it's time. I got to make a move. I got to get closer to my kids, or I got to get, we're going into a different type of housing situation. Those are the obvious ones. Online, what are we talking about? Are we providing value that would be things of value to someone who's thinking about selling a home? Current market conditions. When we're talking to our past clients and our sphere of influence, are we letting them know that, for example, in San Diego right now, there's 50% less inventory on the market right now than there was a year ago at this time? Boy, if anyone was thinking about selling a home, would you rather do it when there's half the competition or twice the competition? And giving people information that they may not be able to find, or that if they Google, they aren't going to get the answer. That local information that we all have in our heads that would be of value to people. So the first thing is, like I said, talking to more people that are prospects or suspects that might be thinking about making a move. And then being able to answer a couple of basic questions. One of which is, why should they hire you? What do you do that's different? I can't tell you how many times when I was as an active agent, I stopped being an active agent in 2010. I still have my team. My team is here. I've seen them. This is the second time this year. First time I met half of them in person. But while I was an active agent prior to 2010, I can't tell you how many times I was in someone's kitchen or at their dining room table. And they said, yeah, the reason we decided to meet with you, or the reason or at the end of the presentation, this used to happen a lot. I always say, hey, why did you, I knew they interviewed multiple agents, say, hey, why are you hiring me right now? And I get things like, we asked all the agents the same question we asked you earlier, which is why we should hire you, or what do you do that's different? you're the only one that had an answer. Now think about that. That's like frightening. And if you can't answer in a sentence or two, what's unique about your value proposition and what you do that's different, or what you do, or why someone should hire you. This goes for a seller or a buyer, right? If you're meeting a buyer, and in fact, this happened on my team last week because I heard about this in Slack, that buyer contacted us, but they're interviewing agents. They know exactly like the couple of neighborhoods they want to live in, the type of house they want. They're in the $2.5 to $3 million range, and they're interviewing agents to help them find that house. And I said to the buyer's agent on the team, I said, you have to be prepared to answer one question, and that is what we do that's different, or what we do that's going to give them an advantage over anyone else they hire. And if you can't do that, then quite frankly, do we deserve to earn the business? So now it may be your work ethic, it may be your focus, it may be your customer experience that you provide, it may be your integrity, whatever it is, isn't the critical thing. The critical thing is that you have a unique value proposition. And by unique, I mean unique to you, not unique to the world, right? You don't have to be the only person in the world that does this thing or has this thing or operates this way. It has to be unique to you. So those are all the things that lead up to getting the opportunity. Then once you have the opportunity, how do you make sure that you win it, right? It's great when you get a referral and someone already trusts you and has a comfort level with you because of the trust and the comfort level they have with the person that referred them to you. But we can't live alone on those type of referrals, right? We don't get enough of those. So we're out there trying to find people to sell. When we're trying to find people or people that have already made the decision to sell, oftentimes they're interviewing multiple agents. And so what do you do to make sure that you're the agent that gets the listing? So I'll just share a couple quick things that I used to always do. Number one, and by the way, I'm cool. If someone doesn't like these, doesn't agree with these, has heard something different, all good. All right. So don't worry about not agreeing with everything or even liking any of it. I always wanted to be the last agent. If they were interviewing multiple agents, I wanted to be the last one because it was just easier, right? I knew that if I was the last agent, there was no, hey, we have one more interview, wasn't going to be something I was going to have to overcome. Now, there were times where I had to overcome that, and I did. And I called the other agents and canceled their appointments and did it respectfully, but inside was having a lot of fun doing it. But it was just easier if I was the last one. And that way too, by the time they talk to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 agents, they're going to be really clear on what's important to them. So it's going to be a shorter conversation because we're just going to get down to the things that are most important to them. So that was one thing I did. Qualifying the appointments, super important. So before I ever get there, making sure like a doctor walking into an operating room, I knew what I was walking into, right? I wasn't going to be surprised if they thought their house was worth this and it was really worth this. I knew that when I got there. I knew that before I got there because I asked them, hey, when we meet, how much do you want to price your home or how much you want to list your home for? If they're talking to other agents, I would know that before I got there because that was one of my qualifying questions. Where they're removing, when they need to be there, what their house, how they rated their house on a scale of 1 to 10. And if they said it was an 8, hey, what would make it a 10? Well, we got the kitchen's a little dated, right? So I knew all that stuff before I got there, right? So I knew what I was walking into. I would also then make sure that they all got a pre-listing packet or information about me, about our team ahead of time. And I did that for 2 reasons. Number one, to pre-sell them, to make it less likely that they cancel before we get there, and to shorten the presentation because I'm giving them that information up front, and if they have questions about it. And then making sure that they got it, making sure that they looked at it. When we called to confirm the appointment, it was, hey, Jason, this is Chris. I'm the one you're meeting with tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Hey, calling for 2 reasons. Number one, does that time still work for you? Great. Number two, did you get the information we sent? Have you had a chance to look at? No, Chris, we've been really busy. I haven't looked at. Okay, it's important you look at it before I get there. Will you be able to do that between now and 4 o'clock tomorrow? Oh, yeah, okay, we will. Yeah, here's why it's important. It's going to answer a lot of your questions, and it may raise some questions you have, and then we'll be able to address what's important to you and the questions you have when we meet to make the best use of our time. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, great. Thanks for reviewing that. Super excited to see you at 4 o'clock tomorrow and talk to you about how we can help you get your home sold and get you going to Columbus, Ohio, which is where I just decided Jason's moving to. And then when I get there, I'm walking, couple other things, always early, always get there 5 minutes early. Why do you get there 5 minutes early? Because every other agent they met with probably got there late, because agents get the things late. And that's coming from the person who was late to this Zoom. Excuse me one sec. So you get there early. When you walk in, it's that firm handshake, looking them in the eye, big smile on your face, exuding confidence. And if you don't have it, you fake it till you do. And tell them how excited you are about helping them get their home sold. And then you go through your presentation. You have to have a presentation to be able to go through one. So, and that's a whole nother call probably. But I used to always say, hey, before we sit down, I'd like you to take a quick look at the home. Now, what do they always do? They say, oh yeah, great. Well, let us show you around. I always say, you know what? Actually, I'd like to go by myself and just look at your home through the eyes of a buyer. And then when I come back, if I have any questions, I'll ask you those. So I'll meet you back in the kitchen in a few minutes. Now, why did I do that? Number one, I didn't want a half-hour tour of their home, right? I know what to look for. I know where I can see where the dings in the walls are and the cobwebs in the corners and, the size of the rooms and all that stuff. I don't need them telling me about the extra padding they put under the carpet in the master bedroom, because it makes it more luxurious, right? It doesn't change the value of the house. And then when I came back, I was always say, hey, the house is great. There's some recommendations I'm going to have. We'll go over those at the end. And then I would say, hey, can we sit here at the counter or at the table? Right? I always want to be at a counter or table. If this is now, look, if we're doing any of these over Zoom, now this matters. We can talk about that, but I'm talking about a face-to-face meeting. They'd often say, hey, can you get you anything? I would always say yes. I'd love some water. If they didn't ask me, I'd say, hey, is it okay if you, I'd love a glass of water. I was always doing that because I wanted to get them used to agreeing with me, used to doing what I was going to recommend, used to saying, doing what I wanted them to do. And then I'd go through my presentation, and I had the mindset before I got there that I was not going to leave without a signature. I was not going to leave unless they physically threw me out of the house. And I was going to, if I had to overcome an objection 3 times, I'd overcome it 3 times. If I had to do it 13 times, I would do it 13 times. And that was my mindset.